Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello, Scott.
Josh, my friend, Ubisoft's Forward was last night, or as most of the internet started to refer to it, Ubisoft BACKWARD.
Very good.
Static,
Very good.
Because not a whole lot really happened in it. I kind of watched it just thinking, most of the people who didn't watch that are as well off or as knowledgeable about Ubisoft products as the people that watched it, because for the most part, everything that was in it was already announced. I guess minus Far Cry 6, which had already leaked beforehand.
Yeah.
They put the CG trailer up and stuff. But yeah, we can break down some of the games, but what were your initial thoughts for the showcase overall?
Oh man, like I never want to come into this stuff being really negative, but I was incredibly bored watching this show. Like there were times when I sort of had to stop and go get a drink or something because I felt like this is my Sunday night. And there's nothing here of kind of any real substance, like you said, that we haven't seen before. I don't think it necessarily had to be done in this way. If you're going to hold an event, to me, you want either complete major blowouts into the games, or you kind of want new reveals and some surprises. And yeah, they had Far Cry 6, and it was unfortunate that, it was leaked beforehand. But at the same time, even if Far Cry 6 hadn't leaked, if that was all they had, I would have still been a bit disappointed because I think everyone expected that to be announced soon anyway. That's a staple of their kind of output at the moment. So for me, when they mentioned at the end that they had another Ubisoft Forward coming up at the end of the year,
weirdest thing.
I just kind of felt like, well, I wish I was watching that one instead, because I'm sure that one's going to have a few more kind of surprises. I mean, what they did show, I thought some of it looked solid. It was just kind of weird that this was the selection they've decided to show off now, because like you said, we have seen most of them before, with the exception of kind of like Far Cry 6 and I guess the Valhalla gameplay proper.
It feels like every company is sort of figuring out a way to deal with this E3-less summer, where it's like, okay, we're going to do live streams, we're going to do maybe part of the IGN showcase or Jeff Keighley showcase, and Ubisoft were like, we're going to do Ubisoft Forward, which I still don't know what the name is supposed to be. I think they could have done something else, but at the same time, watching this, I was like, man, Nintendo have this stuff down. Like, obviously they originated the Direct thing for years, and they literally just go trailer gameplay, tiny bit of executive stuff in between where someone's talking to you saying, hey, we're really proud of this next thing, and here's this surprise that we've got lined up. As soon as you start doing anything more than that in a live stream setting where people are only tuning in for announcements, I think it bogs it the hell down. Things like the Rainbow Six Siege celebration video, or like the preamble for the Watch Dogs Legion, and things like that. I don't know if they know what it is. Like, it's kind of just like, it's kind of meant to be a love letter to the Ubisoft fandom, like, overall, but then it's also this kind of delayed thing where people are going in for specific stuff, and then you're just kind of really slowly rolling it out.
Yeah, I think it's really, like you said, it's fascinating kind of seeing all of these different companies kind of play catch up and move over from the kind of live venue to this more digital approach to, E3 style conferences. And some of them have been doing quite well. Some of them, like Ubisoft, haven't really been able to translate what they did well in a live space to a kind of like a digital one. Because for me, man, I was just absolutely pining for the Just Dance dancers to come out and do something mad. Or to have some kind of really crappy joke or not at all land, and just have kind of like something, because like you said, it was kind of like awkward in the transitions between the game to kind of like interviews with the devs, which I usually like actually being able to kind of get this behind the scenes look at the people who are passionate about these games and who obviously put a lot of time and effort and love into making them. Like that stuff is always kind of like a highlight of E3, when kind of like the corporate barriers break down and you get a little bit of that kind of, I don't know, impromptu passion, like Ghostwire Tokyo and stuff like that. Actual humanity, exactly. But I felt like that was slightly lacking, in this show overall.
Yeah. It was just a weird beat the whole way through it, and obviously their big reveal was Far Cry 6, which even then they didn't do gameplay of. They've since released a handful of screenshots that are doing the rounds, which looks solid enough. But why the hell didn't you just show that, unless it's not gameplay ready at this point or whatever? But yeah, Giancarlo Esposito obviously is the lead villain. We've covered him a couple of times in some bits of news beforehand. For what it's worth, that scene was brilliant. Like, his whole thing, sort of taking care of his son and giving his son a live grenade and then taking the pin out and sort of making this great metaphor about how the country is like barely holding holding together. This fictional country called Yara is like barely holding together because it's the internal component and the shell that keeps it together, and that's just like the grenade. And then what's going to happen when you're in control and stuff. I thought that stuff was really well done. Even though my inbuilt reaction to CG trailers was just screaming, "This tells me nothing," for the vast majority of the game itself. But yeah, we can run down some stuff. We can maybe get back to Far Cry, but one of the biggest things is Assassin's Creed Valhalla in terms of the reception that it's getting, because I'm not negative on it. I'm kind of completely middling on it. I just think it looks like a reskin of Odyssey, and it's very much them doubling down on the new age Assassin's Creed identity, which isn't really for me. I think they're a really good sort of 2 to 20-ish hours, but then it goes on for 10 times more than that, and it just burns out. So where did you come down on Valhalla?
It's a funny one, man, because when they announced it, I was like quite surprised because they were saying all the right things, and I found myself getting excited for it. If you go back to like the videos we did around its announcement, like I was quite hyped. But unfortunately, like from the gameplay we've seen, like you said, it feels very much in the Odyssey vein, especially when it comes to like the core gameplay loop and what you're actually doing. And I can't quite mar that with what they've said about there being kind of virtually no side quests, because everything is like important, with you having this home base of a kind of settlement that you're building up and making decisions that will impact the world, and kind of all of the great steps that they've talked about in moving away from the numbers-based kind of gameplay of Odyssey and moving to something more immersive. I just need to see a bit more of it, and unfortunately what we've seen so far is kind of a bit more Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is, enjoyable, like you said, for 20-30 hours or so, until it becomes kind of completely overwhelming and you have this existential crisis. I want to play it myself, and I want to see how well they've implemented the changes, because I do love the core kind of I guess grind of Odyssey's kind of like combat and exploration. I think it's really kind of an interesting it's Ubisoft, so they always make interesting worlds, and they always have these rich worlds and these historically accurate worlds that are fascinating. But like when they're talking about, now you have the ability to pick up any 2 weapons and do this stuff, and it's kind of like
shields.
That's cool, but I like, show me more of the unique selling point. Show me more of this settlement stuff.
Yeah.
Show me more of why this is differentiated so much from the previous games, if it has. Like I said, I'm kind of with you. I'm still. I'm not like completely negative on it, but also I haven't seen anything that's made me kind of punch the air and go, yes, I need to pre-order this right now.
Yeah, I'm not excited for it. I know exactly what it's going to be. I remember when before Assassin's Creed Unity came out, and everyone was saying like, "Look, this is weird because it's one of the first times that we've had a big next generation sequel, or like a franchise going from one generation to the next, and we know exactly how it's going to play." And that's a weird feeling ahead of time. Like, what are you really getting excited for, other than more of the same? And I sort of said to you in our Slack chat before we started recording this that it reminds me of just Lunch Lady Doris and the Simpsons just slopping out, or any sort of lunch lady, just, "Do you want some more? Here's a big old scoop, here's a big old ladle of the sort of, the slop that you've had before, and there's some nutrients in there, there's some worthwhile stuff in there, and it was good last time, but here's just more of the same." And it's, in another way, it kind of feels like they're doing for, Viking history and Viking mythology and iconography what Black Flag did for pirates, and I guess like sort of shining another light on different sort of stereotypes and things like that, because they got in there in the reveal last night, and they were like, "Hey, look, by the way, Vikings were way more like farmers, and they were masters of stealth when they needed it to be," which just made me laugh. But apparently, I then had a couple of people on Twitter just say, "Look, literally that was the case, that they did have different techniques that they would use to infiltrate places more subtly. It's just that the stereotype of Vikings is way more over the top." But at the same time, the footage that they then showed after saying Vikings were masters of stealth was just like 4 or 5 Vikings just raiding a village, burning it to the ground, killing a bunch of what looked like innocent people. Just being Vikings.
That's the funny thing, isn't it? Like with this stuff, because obviously like the people who have done the history in these games obviously know their history, they know their research, but that's always juxtaposed with kind of like the reality of what a AAA blockbuster action game is. So you have this person talking about how actually really Vikings were just farmers looking for land, and then that's juxtaposed with this, footage of like these big gory battles and things on fire and stuff. It is like, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, this is not the best way to communicate that, just because you need something for the sizzle reel and something for an exciting TV spot, I suppose.
Assassin's Creed tone is all over the place now as well. Like I've started to refer to it more as the Ubisoft everything game, which is what Jules referred to. Like it was back when the Crew 2 was coming out, and all of a sudden the Crew had like, you can control boats, you can control planes. It was just them throwing everything at the wall, and all of it was being forced to stick like with a staple gun. And it kind of feels like a modern Assassin's Creed is kind of like that. It's like it's a little bit of Dark Souls, it's a little bit of RPG mechanics. There's a loot grind, there's a conversation system, there's the parkour system, there's a stealth system, there's tall grass, like there's everything in here, and it's a jack of all trades and a master of none, and it means that the tone is all over the place story-wise as well, because they have this kind of grounded tone about the invasion of England, and then certain things that Eivor says is, playing into saving different regions and stuff, but then it's also really over the top, and you're summoning, like you're going to be able to summon all these over-the-top powers, and you can throw axes across the battlefield that are imbued with magic and stuff like that. So it's a bit of a thing.
It is, and again, like with a lot of what Ubisoft showed last night, I'm kind of conflicted, because on the one hand, like there's a lot of stuff in there that I'm really looking forward to trying myself, and I hope is fully realized, but at the same time, there's a lot of it where I'm just kind of like, like with a lot of Ubisoft games now, and especially what they showed off yesterday, I feel like a bunch of them are kind of like lacking a cohesive vision, you know what I mean? Like you said, it's kind of like the Ubisoft everything game. It's a lot of disparate parts thrown in. And yeah, there are strong creative voices in there, but they never seem to gel together to make one thing where everything informs the thing. I don't know. I hope to be proven wrong. I hope it's really, really good. And it's like better than just the sort of 7 or 8 out of 10 that I'm expecting it to be, like a very solid experience.
Yeah, that's kind of the mindset I'm in. But yeah, the other stuff that they announced, I mean, Elite Squad had already been shown before. They've already kind of shown that off. It's like a mobile game. It's almost like a 3v3 thing. It looks a bit tower defense-y, but they haven't shown much else. The thing that was last night was the CG trailer. But a lot of people freaked out going like, oh my God, Sam Fisher's been Skylanders and now he's in Elite Squad. That happened last year. Like Elite Squad's been out there for a little while. Brawlhalla got some announcements. Hyperscape is their synthwave, cyberpunky first-person shooter battle royale thing, which is really funny because if you know your synth music, they've literally taken, like the dude that did the music for Cyberpunk 2077's reveal, it's called Hyper, and they've literally gone back. He then did an EP follow-up because Cyberpunk blew up so much, so he did a little EP called, like, I think it was called the Cyberpunk EP, to cash in on how much, like, extra attention he was getting because he was in the 2077 soundtrack. Ubisoft have then used one of his tracks that he did for that EP for the Hyperspace trailer, so just kind of go like, remember that guy from Cyberpunk 2077? We've got his other stuff now, so just to sort of get in on that.
Decent, you know what I mean? Like, as far as Battle Royale games go, I thought it had like a nice, fun twist to it. I thought, I mean, as far as Ready Player One ripoffs go, I thought it was quite an interesting approach to it. But no, I feel like I think it's only PC at the moment, or at least the beta's out now.
The beta's on PC,
Yeah. I'm excited to see how that kind of like, I don't know, because I have a fondness, and this might sound ridiculous considering that I don't like Fortnite much, but I like the kind of more fantastical, cartoony elements of Battle Royale. I like that you have like these modifiers. Even though Twitch isn't my thing, I can see a lot of people having fun with kind of like that community aspect of it if it's done well and it's not just done in kind of like a pandering way.
Yeah. My thing's more that if they can take, I always love hyperkinetic first-person shooters. Like Titanfall 2, best first-person shooter of the generation. Quote me. I will take anything that has like knee slides and big double jumps and wall runs and stuff like that. And it feels like they're playing into that sensibility. If you wrap that in, a synthwave cyberpunk package, then that should be pretty damn perfect. Even though it is just running down a checkbox list of what will work right now. 101. It kind of feels like that. But the only other thing that was pretty big that was shown was Watch Dogs Legion, which I'd completely forgot existed. I don't know if you did.
A little bit. Like, I remember when it was pushed back, and I remember thinking it looked quite good when we first saw it last year now, I suppose. And this is, right, because they led with this year, more or less, wasn't it? Like, Watch Dogs Legion was up quite early on. And man, like, I was all over the place with this. I thought, like, some of the gameplay looked quite neat, like the ability to obviously recruit all of these different people, each with their own set of skills. You've got the construction worker, you've got the John Wick style hitman, and I thought, like, the differences. The old lady, the differences in kind of like the combat styles were kind of interesting, and I thought it looked like it played well. But again, there's that kind of weird division within me, which is also quite ironic because that's another Ubisoft game, but where you've got kind of like this great gameplay style, but like the tone did absolutely nout for me. Like that kind of whole cyberpunk anarcho thing they're going
That's
for.
Geordie for nothing, Americans.
Yeah, it's Geordie for nothing.
Didn't help for me.
Man, I was like cringing at parts of it because I don't know how they're going to tackle it, because for the past few years, for better or worse, Ubisoft have kind of been out there going like, look, we're not going to make these games political. But then they're choosing inherently political setups to kind of make these non-political games. So you can't really have the kind of like this game about an uprising in a kind of police state London, or a game like about a literal revolution of Far Cry 6 and also not have them be political. And I feel like in Watch Dogs especially, the kind of dissonance between those different approaches just kind of like comes to a head, and I'm kind of like, what is this tone? What is this approach? Choose one or the other.
It's a weird clash. Yeah, it's like having your cake and protesting about it too. It's just like, well, it's just a cake, just a cake. But also we've got these massive picket signs and we're drawing all this attention to it and we're trying to make a statement until you get into the game and they have nothing else to say. It was just, I think it's a fundamental misconception of what that phrase means, like being political. I think that in Far Cry 5, it was like, all the game's not political, but also it ties into all this different messaging and all these different ways that we're leading into it. But once you get to the game itself, it doesn't take a stance. It has nothing to say. Yeah. So it's maybe it's just that, and they're trying to make something as overblown as possible so that when people, when the rubber hits the road and you get to the final game, it's not going to take a stance on anything relating to post-Brexit London or whatever. And at the minute, they can just sort of dive into all the crazy over-the-top neon stuff. But yeah, I mean, a promising enough showing, but I feel like we know exactly what these games are going to be, and that always gut punches me a bit. Like underneath all the potential excitement, I'm always like, I know exactly what this is. I know exactly what I'm getting. And there's always a cap on excitement for me. I don't know if that's the same with you.
Yeah, more or less the exact same. Like, I didn't feel like I learned anything about these games last night that I didn't already at least know or could have inferred. You know what I mean? Everything played out more or less exactly like I was supposed to, and that's partly because a lot of the games we've seen, even if it was like a brief cinematic before, like we kind of know what these franchises are. A lot of them have already been revealed, and the one I was most interested about, Far Cry 6, I thought had like the strongest trailer, and I've been looking at the screenshots afterwards, like the way they're kind of like messing around with the attachments and the weapons, the weather dynamics and stuff. I just wish we saw more of that, and I'm looking forward to seeing more from that game especially.
Yeah, same. Far Cry 6 seems to be, I guess, is one of the only things that I'm the most excited for in Ubisoft's catalog. I've given up caring about Splinter Cell. I don't think they care. So why should I care? And Beyond Good and Evil 2, it might as well be a space ape in space. Just flying around, not being anywhere close to touching down for anyone to sort of recognize, because that thing wasn't even mentioned. But yeah, let's what we think. Yeah, let us know what you think down in the comments below of what they showed. Are there any games that you're excited for, or are you sort of in a weird 5-6 out of 10 space like we are? For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
I'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.